This is a Zach Feldman Show replay on ZRadioLive.com.
The website music station Z Radio Live. This is the Zach Feldman Show. Joining me over the phone is an author. He has a new book out called Take a Priest Like You, The Long Journey Home. It's Michael Barrington. Michael, thanks so much for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. How's everything going?
That's great, Zach, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Tell me all about this brand new book.
Well, it's a memoir, and it's about really my life as a former Catholic priest and missionary. I was a missionary for 10 years in West Africa. Interestingly enough, I wrote a very, very short memoir about 12 years ago called The Bishop Wears No Drawers. And my publisher said, we should really just take your time in Africa and make a little book about that. So I did. And it sold pretty well. But my family have been bugging me for years to tell my complete story, and my friends too. And it's a big risk to write a memoir, because one of the elements that readers expect in a memoir is that you're telling the truth. Mm-hmm. and so it really means, sure. Yeah. So it means the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I hesitated until this year I decided, okay, I'll do it. I'll write it. And so I did. And the other element in writing a memoir, my memoir, is that I had to be very careful, because I didn't want to offend people. Yeah. Although that's pretty difficult to avoid. Mm. And the other thing is I wanted to avoid lawsuits. Yeah. Because I didn't want people coming back and suing me saying, you said some horrible things about me and stuff like that. Mm. So, and I know we can change names and change circumstances. So that was it. I finally got my head around it and decided to write it. And that's what I did. And it was published in August of this year, Take a Priest Like You.
Awesome. And, and it's out there. It's been on Amazon for a while. Tell me about kind of your experience, being there in Africa. Was that a complete 360 on your world?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it was. I've been trained. I was a member of a French missionary order, and we were different to most priests that you might meet in parishes and stuff like that. That's not the kind of work we did. We were rather like the Marines of the Catholic Church. We would go where no one else went, and our job was to really go and live with people, and basically set up shop, so that the native clergy eventually could come behind and run parishes. But we were on the front lines, and when my first assignment was to Nigeria, and I landed in a civil war. The civil war had just started when I got there. My bishop posted me to the front lines. I spent 6 months actually in a college filling in for a guy who was sick, and then I was posted to the front lines. And we were literally in the jungle. The nearest town was 44 miles away, and that really started stuff for me. It was a horrible experience, because the military were really rough. They were very poorly trained. Yeah. They were running around with AK-47s. Some kids who, for the first time in their lives, had a pair of pants and a pair of boots, and now with an AK-47. They were very, very dangerous. And one of the first things that happened to me is I had a Land Rover, and I had two flats. Two of my tires went out, and nowhere to repair it. So I got a hike on a truck going to the town. The military allowed me to go on this truck. And we were picking up passengers and bags of rice on the way to the town. And I was really worried, because it got very, very late. And I knew we would have a hell of a time getting through the checkpoints outside the town. And sure enough, we got there at 10 o'clock at night or so. And we were the only truck at the checkpoint. All the soldiers, there were about 6 of them, were blind drunk.
Oh, my gosh.
And they pulled us all off the truck and said that someone on our truck had raped one of their women. A stupid story.
A completely made up story, obviously.
But they were serious.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who was in charge. I thought he was an officer. He turned out eventually to be a sergeant. And he said, if you don't tell us who did this, I'm going to shoot you all.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, what?
You must have been you must have been thinking like the worst then.
Well, not initially. I just thought, this is stupid. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, line up against the truck. So he lined us all up against the truck. There were about, altogether with the passengers, maybe 25 of us. And he told two guys, they went into this tin shack and brought out a machine gun and set it up about 30 feet away. And he said, if you don't tell us, I'm going to shoot all of you.
Oh my gosh.
And he started this countdown in a drunken voice, like 1, 2. And it was horrible. I'm saying to myself, I'm going to be shot like a dog, and my body will be thrown into the jungle, and no one will ever remember me.
100%. I mean, that's a horrifying experience to go through. I mean, I can't even imagine, what you had to go through in this situation, Michael. I mean, it just seems like a nightmare.
It was exactly that, and strange things happen. Like I said, I had this crazy tape playing in my head, and yet here I am, the priest. I wasn't thinking about God. I wasn't thinking about praying. And here I am facing possible death. It was just a crazy thing. And, these two soldiers came out of this tin shack and they were pouring beer over each other. And I recognized the language. They were speaking Hausa, and I spoke fairly good Hausa. And I shouted at them. And it stopped everybody dead in their tracks. The guy who was doing the countdown, he stopped, and they all came. They didn't recognize me at first because we were lined up against the truck in the dark. They didn't know I was a white man. And so they pulled me out, and then I persuaded them in their own language to stop and let us go. And, they gave me this hot bottle of beer to drink. One guy put it in his mouth and took the top off and gave it to me. And it was a hot beer, and I felt like peeing my pants.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, they let us go.
That's good. And I'm glad they let you go.
Yeah, they kept the driver. And every truck has a couple of drivers, but I think it was all about money at the end of the day. They needed more money, the bribe. Yeah. So that was my first terrible experience during the war. The second experience I had that was equally terrible, but differently, at the end of the war, the Nigerian government didn't know how to demobilize all these young guys running around with AK-47s. And they went back to their villages and started robbing people and whatnot. And so they started doing public executions. And because I was a priest, we had a command performance. We had to show up at this soccer field and watch 10 guys being shot. And I was about 15 feet from the nearest guy. It's just an experience that stays with me till today, being that close in those circumstances. And you can actually hear the bullets hitting the flesh. It's you don't ever want to go through that.
No, not at all. But it's a blessing what you've done, which is, spread your message.
We survived.
And you survived too. I mean, that's that's the main part here. But at the same time too, you were also able to, spread your message, what you wanted to do in Africa, which is an incredible feat too. I mean, do you have, when you look back at that, experience? I mean, what's a highlight? Not a positive this time.
God. It's I was living in the jungle, a very remote area, and just people are people everywhere, and that was a wonderful, wonderful experience, just living with people. And my message was, how can we help you? What do you want? What do you need? How can we help you? We weren't proselytizing in that sense. It was basically, and they said they needed a little bridge building, and I said, well, we can do that together, and so we did it, whatever. So I had another very interesting experience. I made friends with a guy who had a truck. This is after the war. He used to come into the village once a week on a market day, and he was a Muslim. He was an al-Haji.
Yeah.
And we became really, really good friends. And he just said to me one day, Barrington, I want you to come to my house and have dinner with me and my wife's son. I said, oh, okay. So we drove the 30-odd miles to his house. And we just had a lovely, lovely evening, just the two of us. And he used to say, I'm a bad Muslim. I'm drinking beer. So but we sat down. We sat down and had 2 or 3 beers together. And then he said to me, I want you to stay the night with me in my house. And I thought, oh my God, I really can't do that.
Oh, geez.
If people find out I'm sleeping in his house, I had all kind of stupid excuses. And then all of a sudden he gets up and walks out, and he brings in this gorgeous looking woman. And he says to her, show your boobs to Barrington. So she doesn't hesitate. And it's all in the line. So she strips to her waist. And he said, this is my youngest wife. He said, if you stay the night, you can have her. I said, hey, I'm a Catholic priest. I'm celibate. We don't sleep with women. And he said, oh, don't give me that bullshit. She's gorgeous. Take her.
Oh, my God.
I said, no, I can't, so. But I've had lots of thoughts about it since. but at the time, it was kind of unhinging a little bit. So,
I mean, I don't even know where to begin after that. That's got to be. I mean,
it's in the book. Read the book, Zach. It's in the book.
100% it's in the book. I know that for a fact. But I can't imagine. I mean, it's a different culture out there.
Sure,
it is.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
And honestly, I feel horrible for that woman too. But
absolutely,
that's just,
yeah.
It's a culture shock. That's what it is, and you've experienced it. Living out your life through these adventures. I mean, what is the advice you have for those who want to visit these other countries and aren't prepared, kind of for what they're going to see?
I think it's 2 things, Zach. I think if you go, surely go and visit these countries because it's a wonderful experience, but you're going as a tourist. So you're going to experience things at a particular level. But you only have to live there a short while before you get under the skin of things and realize, for example, you look at poverty, you see it all around you when you go to many of these third world countries. Mm-hmm. But when you stay there, you begin to experience that poverty. So it's very different.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, keep going. Go to them. It's go and visit these countries. It's an education. You'll educate yourself, and you will grow in understanding of people.
It's important, because you have to learn about kind of the history behind it. I mean, it's
sure.
It's important. It's really important to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, this isn't your first book. You've written many books before this. But why now, kind of writing your novel? What kind of inspired you to finally get this out there?
This particular book, the memoir?
This memoir, yeah.
Yeah, my family really pushed me to do it.
Yeah.
That was the bottom line.
Because you have other books out there that are all that, fictionist books. You have other books out there that are, more creative. Finally, you were kind of hearing the author's story.
That's right. Yeah, it is. And, like I said before, it's writing a memoir, it can be problematic and I hesitated, because to write a memoir, you've got to be honest. People expect that in a memoir. They want the truth of you. Who are you? Who is this guy? Mm-hmm. And at that point, you have to be ready to write the good, the bad, and the ugly about yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't make it up.
No, not at all. But you went through the experiences in your head, and you were able to get it out on paper and get it published too. What is that feeling like when your personal stories are now out for the world to read?
Well, I think by the time you get there, because you've died 1,000 deaths writing the damn thing, mm-hmm. The actual publication is like, woof, you've just given birth and it's gone. It's writing it is an emotional thing. There were times when I was writing it, I simply had to stop. Yeah. Because it brought up such powerful emotions and feelings at times. I just had to stop writing and then go back to it. And, I thought over the years I've had therapy and done all kinds of things. I thought I'd worked through a lot of stuff, but it still brought up very powerful emotions and feelings. Yeah,
100%. I mean, these are moments that, you are never going to forget for the rest of your life.
Right.
What is next for you? Obviously, as a missionary, but also as an author, what is next for you?
Well, I'm no longer a missionary because I got married.
Ah, well, congratulations.
Yeah, I did. I
don't know if I should say congratulations or if I should say, oh man, I'm so sorry. But That's a hard. Do I say congratulations? I guess I say congratulations, right?
Of course you can. I lived in the jungle for 7 years on my own, and that was really the point. I realized that I was not made to live on my own. I needed a partner, and so every time I decided to leave the priesthood, I got promoted. Oh. So it kind of it prolonged the experience. Yeah, it literally did. It literally did, and I ended up. I was in Puerto Rico as the director, basically, of training for the whole of Latin America. And I walked off the job in Puerto Rico and came to California.
That's awesome. And, how long have you been married now?
30 years. So.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's incredible. Well, I should say then former
there you go.
Priest. Former priest then.
My wife is French.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think you ever stopped becoming a priest. That's what I think.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I joined Rotary International. I don't know whether you're familiar with Rotary. And so I worked, it's a humanitarian organization, a volunteer. And I've traveled to maybe 50, 60 countries for Rotary International working on humanitarian projects. It's like it's in my DNA, it's in my blood. I keep doing it.
100%. And that makes you such a good person, and it's so cool to see your experiences now finally written out in this tell-all book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome, when someone like you especially, who has all this experience is able to kind of tell the world about it too. And it definitely is one to pick up for sure to read about. Because there's some crazy stories in there. I mean, obviously, that's what you just heard before, but
totally, lots more where they came from.
Exactly. But again, I'll ask you again though, too. What is next for you?
I've got two other books that I'm really selling very, very well, and they're both about the French resistance during World War II. The first one is Let the Peacock Sing, and the second one is No Room for Heroes. And I've been asked, why did I write two books about the same topic? Not an easy answer, because both books take place in France, of course, but on different areas of France. One takes place on the west coast of France, and the other takes place on the east coast of France. And so they're very, very different stories, even though the topic is the same. And, I first went to France when I was a very young kid. Fell in love with the country, then later on joined a French order and then lived in France. I speak fluent French. And I fell in love with the country. And of course, in the UK, as opposed to the US, in the UK, when I was in school, for example, in grade school and then later on in high school, the World War II was still fresh in people's minds. And so I had uncles and aunts who'd fought in the war, who'd been to France. And I just got fascinated with history. And so I wanted to write about it. And then when I lived in France, I began to see places and go to places where the resistance had actually worked. And then just full circle, I married a French woman, and my father-in-law fought as one of the resistance in France during World War II. So I just had to write about this stuff. There were so many, many stories. And interestingly enough, the Let the Peacock Sing right now is being reviewed by ITV in the UK as a possible television series.
That's awesome.
As it's selling really, really well. Let the Peacock Sing is one of my best sellers.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm so excited to see that come to life. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see that come to fruition. You definitely got to come back when you're ready to promote that, because I would love to talk to you more about that series coming to light. But right now, obviously, take a priest like you. The Long Journey Home is on Amazon right now. And for those who want to find you online, where can they go for the website?
They can go to my website. Just go to mbwriter. That's mbwriter.net. And you get it all on my website. All my books are there. And I also do a blog on my website.
Nice. That is awesome. Michael Barrington, I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on, telling us about some of your stories in the book, too. But definitely check out more of his stories at Take a Priest Like You, The The Long Journey Home, and it's available on Amazon. Michael Barrington, thanks again for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show, and best of luck with everything.
Zach, you are awesome. Thanks for having me.
You are awesome as well. Definitely come back. The Webster Music Station, Z Radio Live, back with more Zach Feldman Show.
Want to hear more? Listen to the Zach Feldman Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ZRadioLive.com.